Albert, good to see you. Are you in Saint Imier?
Hi. No, I'm actually in Germany. I was in Saint Imier yesterday.
Fantastic. So we are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, and I invite everybody joining this live to let us know if there are any issues with the sound or indeed with the image. Although, of course, we depend on Instagram for the quality of the images. But anyway, Albert,
yeah, I cannot change a lot about that. It's
we carry on, and we start again from where we left it in Ireland. Albert, we met. We had a fantastic dinner together. We had a lot of laughter, a lot of joy in sharing our passion for independent watchmaking, and it was really good to see you there with a nice, with a few nice pieces over there with Peter as well. How have these last months been for Zeitwinkel? You're very busy. How is everything in general?
Well, we are in fact very busy, and our main problem at the moment is capacity all over the industry. It's capacity for our supply partners, it's capacity in terms of other service providers, and most of all, it's capacity in watchmaking. We're trying to hire a watchmaker who's experienced with basically building movements from the bottom up. So if anybody is listening, please send a DM.
Indeed, let us know. It is not a joke that watchmakers has become a very, very, how can I say, sought after profession these days, where really there are issues in supply. Supply chain is across the board in a lot of industries is an issue these days. But watchmaking is the result of a demand that, for anachronistic as it sounds, Albert, we've not seen it at this level for a very long time.
No, we haven't. And since we try to work with suppliers that are maybe an hour by car away from us, our choice is very limited. So we cannot go to somebody in far eastern Switzerland because we just don't do that. We have to wait until until they have the time to build something for us. So we were going to present a new dial this week in London, and we will probably present it in March now, maybe April.
Of course. Yeah. And I will see you in London, and you give me an assist to remind everybody there is Watch Pro Live this week in London. We will be there on the Friday. Between us, if you need a ticket for the preview, actually, is going to happen on a Friday. Let us know. We can facilitate that. I will be there from 3 o'clock more or less on Friday. And yeah, so Zeitwinkel will be officially present. And in what capacity, Albert? Will you have a full collection? Will you have a few pieces that you're going to be able to share with collectors?
Yes, we will have, I think, 12 watches present. So it's more or less a full collection. We will have all three founders present, the two old ones and me. And we
I like the specification.
yeah, and we still have tickets. So if anybody needs a ticket for the Saturday, please DM us. We can set you up with tickets.
Fantastic. So the event is going to be on Friday. Friday is a private presentation, and on Saturday is more of a public viewing. You need tickets anyway in both scenarios to actually come and attend. There's a big number of brands, and it'll be nice to see Zeitwinkel amongst one of them. Last year, we had a great time at the event. Albert, you were having interesting conversations with customers that are not fully exposed to Zeitwinkel. So starting from the name and starting from the fact that you've already given a hint of the fact that there is a lot of Switzerland, but there is a bit of Germany as well. What does Zeitwinkel stand for?
Okay, Zeitwinkel stands for two things. First of all, the word Zeitwinkel stands for time angle, which is a tool to measure the exact time in any given location. But Zeitwinkel also stands for, we would say, true watchmaking, because we started it as we wanted to have our own movements, our own designs for everything, and our own components. And that's exactly what we did. We developed the movements first, and then only thought about what the watches would look like, obviously on the basis of those movements. And we haven't changed a lot since. So it's our 16th year now. And we're still doing the exact same thing we did in the beginning.
Yes, so 2006. And one of the interesting parts, Albert, is Zeitwinkel is a bit of an organic project, if you pass me the term. It comes from enthusiasm and for people, like-minded people coming together and wanting to see watches that they really like for a start.
Yeah.
How did it all happen in the beginning in 2006?
Well, Peter, one of our co-founders, was in the watch industry, and he had always this dream to build a true watch. And we discussed it a lot beginning of the century. And eventually when I changed professions from renewable energies to being the guy who does live Instagram sessions, we decided, let's do it. And maybe it was naive at the time because you never know how much work something is, but you certainly need a bit of naivete. So we started with 3 founders and had the idea of a movement, developed that, then built the watch designs, and I think we presented the first watches in 2009. No investors, no
angels.
No angels, no conglomerate that tells us what to do on the basis of what other brands in the conglomerate do. And we really grew it organically. Took a few roads that probably didn't make sense in terms of sales and marketing our watches. But all in all, we're still doing the exact same thing we did 10 years ago, which is fun.
To put things in perspective, when you talk about the fashion industry, 16 years is an eternity. But when you talk about Swiss, watchmaking in general, 16 years is really nothing, and yet it still feels like early days for Zeitwinkel as collectors are progressively getting to be aware and exposed to Zeitwinkel in particular. No? I called you a micro brand, and it's not a way to obviously reduce what Zeitwinkel is doing, but micro in the sense of how niche and specialized you have become, because you've been true to your first ambition, which was the one of being an in-house manufacturer from the beginning.
Yes.
That's easy said. What did that imply for you along the way? How long did it take to be a truly in-house integrated manufacturer?
Well, what we do is obviously we don't make all components ourselves. We work with partners. We have now the capacity to make nearly every component, from small screws to pins to we have a CNC machine in our atelier, a can. We have a whole range of Schäublin lathes and all the machinery you would have seen 50 years ago in the workshop. But we decide for every component whether we make it ourselves or whether we work with a partner in the area. So in-house for us does not mean that we get an order for a watch and somebody sits down with a piece of metal and starts filing away until they have a bridge or a plate. However, we sometimes do that. Yeah, but so if we're prototyping or if we have a request for a bespoke watch, you might see us actually making a component in the atelier.
Very interesting, very interesting. And how long did it take to develop your caliber? Obviously, you're very proud, and you have now fully internalized. How long did that process take? Just to give our audience an idea of, again, how long certain operations are to be put in place.
So it took us about 3 years to have something that could be shown and that did that typical TikTok sound. And then we found out development starts once you think you're done, unfortunately. And it took us quite some more time to really find all the different problems that arise only in certain situations. But now, 10 years later, we still have watches out there that have never been serviced, that work perfectly. And for some movements, we found that, for example, certain pins can be put in this way or the other way around, but they need to be put in exactly the right way. And if somebody in the beginning didn't pay attention, you might end up with a date that says 33rd of January.
Which is an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that nice, but you do find out what you can improve. You do find out where maybe a supplier was a little lenient with oversight, or where we made a mistake. But nowadays, I would say we have 99.95%. So 16 years is probably a good development time for a movement.
Very good. So as we remind the people that are following this and the many that will see this recorded, as it often happens, we are live with Zeitwinkel, with Albert from Germany, one of the partners at Zeitwinkel. Zeitwinkel will be present this week at Watch Pro Live in London. So you have an opportunity, if you're here in the UK, like we are, to join and to visit Friday and or Saturday, and let us know in case you're interested. If you have any questions for, again, a watchmaker that you don't see every day exposed that much on the medias, please put it down here, exactly like Bruce Love Watches did. And Bruce is asking, here we go. Movement first design is interesting, Albert. What design elements did you have in mind, I suppose, when you projected the movement? Did you know where hands would be placed on the dial, for example? So you already had in mind a layout, or how did it work?
Yes, obviously that is something you have to do, and we went much further. So I'm pretty sure you cannot really see it on Instagram and with my phone. Yeah, but we first started off with the decision that all the plates and bridges should be untreated German silver. And untreated German silver is not forgiving if you touch it with your bare hands because of the acid and grease on your hands. And it's not forgiving at all if you make any mistakes in decoration. So with other materials, you cover it and you start again. Not here, it goes away. But it's very solid, it's very hard, and it has a very nice patina after a few years. And then we decided on the probably a little atypical for French-speaking Swiss watch companies 3/4 plate. And we had two configurations in mind, which we realized. One being a base movement with an automatic winding mechanism and 72 hours power reserve with either central or decentral seconds, 30 millimeters large, so a little larger than the standard movements you would find, which allows us to build a large small second display and a large date display even in the base models. And the second one was a design where we...
Date display that you have patented as well. If
right. That's the large date display.
Yeah.
With a power reserve, and this one shows you the size of the small second. So this one is a little higher because it has the semi-integrated large date module, which in the beginning gave you such fascinating dates as the 33rd of January.
famously. So the look of the layout of the movement itself gives an overall look of the timepiece that is yet, how can I say, elegant and minimalistic, but also quite functional. So you had in mind from the beginning that you wanted to give useful functions such as the power reserve, such as the big date. And the big date is patented, correct?
Yes, the mechanism for the big date at the 11 position is patented. And another factor when we developed the movements was that we wanted them to be very, very solid. So you can, first of all, they work very well, they are exact, but you can also build upon them. So we didn't aim for the thinnest movement, but really movements where you can add complications, where you can do further developments, where you could think about skeletonization and other things without the movement falling apart. Yeah. It's always nice to see these things in trade shows, but if you have to wear them, or if you're the service department, you want them to be solid.
Of course, of course. So, but it comes across, you know, I can tell you the functionality, the robustness, and how can I say, the minimalistic and clarity of the indications as well. There's no crowding. Everything is very much separated within the dial, where you can access every information quite instinctively, if you like, intuitively. However, this doesn't mean that you have paid attention to the finishing part, which in watchmaking is a bit of the holy grail, because we always say it doesn't necessarily matter what you do, but it's how you do it in watchmaking that is really the key. What was the ethos and the philosophy on the finishing that you've managed to put in place?
Well, we thought we would not stop where many others would stop, which is visible parts. And we have all our watches, unless you have a bespoke watch, have a sapphire crystal on the backside as well. So we don't only decorate the visible parts, and we don't take any shortcuts in, for example, pelage, where we then, you know, do bigger ones and you only have to do fewer. But we also decorate all the parts you don't see. You take the watch apart and you look on the backside of a plate or a bridge, and that is decorated as well. You have anglage everywhere, and there's a lot of decoration done that doesn't need to be done and that nobody ever finds out. And we're constantly told by people who take our watches apart that we should stop that because everybody else is stopping it. We won't.
Yeah, from the visible perspective, you can name Côte de Genève, we can name Perlage, we can name the Emile. Yeah. You use Emile in some models as well. Yes. Polished and chamfered screws, for example, are a big example. So basically, an in-house movement, patented modules such as, for example, the date, the highest standards you can offer in terms of finishing from your perspective, and yet a price level that for you has always been key to keep within affordable. Because to say that Zeitwinkel in the UK, we retail your collection starting at seven and a half. I'm just having a look here.
Well, it's 9.5 Swiss francs, including Swiss VAT.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, with all the exchange rates fluctuating, obviously prices change, but I would say we're still too cheap.
So 16 years have been taken to actually maximize artisanal economies of scale, because I know that you don't leverage on industrial economies of scale. So how did you manage the trick, and how important it is for you to keep it affordable for those enthusiasts that enjoy having access to accessible watchmaking?
Well, it is important for us not to have watch enthusiasts pay for a brand alone. So obviously the way we build watches and the way prices are developing, whether it's salaries in Switzerland, whether it's just the Swiss franc, whether it's suppliers hiking prices all the time, obviously we need to get a fair price for the watch. But what we would never do is increase the price by 20% so we can do more marketing that tells you how important it is to buy this watch. Obviously, we want to be seen, but
the real celebrities are yourself and the other partners at Zeitwinkel. You're not big in celebrity endorsement, to say the least.
Well, if I'm the celebrity, we're definitely lost. No, but there was one thing we decided in the beginning. We don't want to pay anybody for liking our watches because it's just not credible. And I do understand, I'm not stupid. I do understand that it works if Jennifer Lawrence or somebody else wears a watch. There's a subconscious way this works, but it would not work with a brand that is not known. And we, as founders, for a long time also have not really appeared in public. We just let the watches speak. And we understand that with social media, we now have to be more present. But I dare you to take a photo of Peter this weekend at Watch Pro Salon. He will probably run after you.
Be careful, because we're coming with our camera guy, with our media man, so we'll be able to, hopefully to catch some frame, of what's gonna happen in the weekend. And it would be great. I'm pretty sure. So yes, the right balance between artisanal and made and Swiss made as well. Sorry, Albert, that is very important for you. There is a famous video on YouTube that explains a little bit the DNA of Zeitwinkel, where the fact of being a Swiss manufacturer is at the core is really important. I often ask the question how the Swiss made is still relevant in the age and time that we live in now. What does it mean for Zeitwinkel to be Swiss made?
Well, it's we had all founders are from the southwestern part of Germany that used to be French, German, back and forth, independent. So we actually had a choice. We could have built a German watch, for example, in Glashütte. We could have built a mix of any sort, but we found for the way of watchmaking that we wanted to continue, which has a very, very long tradition also of shared labor, where one is the expert for, I don't know, coloring a dial. They do nothing else but coloring dials. And the company might have done it for many, many, many years. And before them, another company in the same location did it for many, many, many years. You don't find that anywhere else. And so we decided if we do that, we will go to Switzerland. And we did not go to one of the big cities, but we're in a former dial factory in Saint Imier. And we decided to work with all these small companies that, of course, today use modern machinery, but where this tradition is still present, and where if you don't know how to do something, the guy at the machine knows somebody in another company who then knows somebody, and he will tell you what, let's say, solvent to use to clean this, or where you can actually find this old machine that can still make these holes with a certain precision and nothing else.
What we call the ecosystem, huh?
Yes, and the echo chamber, if you have a valley and you have a hill on the right and a hill on the left and a layer of fog and clouds above you for at least half of the year, that creates a lot of echo. So you always find somebody who knows somebody, and by now I would say we're mostly accepted as being part of the game. So that was very important for us to have this these true artisans around us.
And you've been flexible as well in terms of giving people the option in terms of sizes. For as much as your production is quite limited, and you will tell me if you wish how many pieces is now Zeitwinkel producing these days, but you generally give the option of two sizes, 38.5 and 40.5 millimeters for different wrists adaptation. So how important is that as well?
So these are the two different sizes. Yep. This is 39 millimeter and this is 42.5. And we don't do all models in these two sizes. But let me see, this one
I may have said 41.5, so I apologize for the mistake.
No, it's 42.5. So anything with a lounge date is only 42.5, as it would look strange in a 39 millimeter. The whole harmony would be off. How many watches do we build? We have had years when it was a solid 2-digit number. And I think the most we have done is low 3-digit numbers. Yeah. And we're not aiming at building as many watches as possible. So this might be different for independents that have investors. But of course, we want to be profitable and we want to be able to make investments. But we also want to make sure we have an equilibrium in terms of quality and also the ability to build the watches that are ordered. So we would always be happy to build limited series of 10, maybe even 20, which we sometimes do, as with the Chrono Tempus collaboration that,
which is beautiful.
That you saw. Yeah. But we would not be happy to build 100 watches for somebody at the moment. Sounds strange, doesn't it?
Of course. It does and it doesn't. Like, It's the same kind of observation that we have when people are looking for the famous brands on our website, and they go like, "Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that?" Because again, the philosophy of doing what you do properly rather than trying to do everything is the fundamental Northern Star of what you guys are doing and what we try to do as well on our side. No, really interesting. So what's next for Zeitwinkel? London is coming up now. You keep traveling the world, and do you want to give us a little update on the new collections that you may be able at one point to launch and to present?
Yes. Well, first of all, our philosophy has never been to play the game of every 6 to 9 months we have a new collection, also because we don't work with classic stockists anymore. We did that in the beginning, and it didn't work out for either side, because we just couldn't compete with the large groups for shelf or window space, and it didn't make sense for us financially in any way. So our philosophy is to introduce a new product or a new variant when we have an idea and when we think it makes sense, or when we have a request, and otherwise to improve and continue building the watches we built. So travel has picked up. We will be in Japan beginning of December. So if anybody sees this from Japan, we will be in Tokyo and in Osaka in beginning of December. And we're also visiting customers across Europe again. Luckily, we're all able to travel again. And we will introduce some pretty interesting new dials, not at London Watch Pro, but now in March, April probably, and are working also on a new case variant that might work with a steel bracelet. But again, here we're not following any trends. We don't want to jump on that bandwagon. We just have so many requests for it that we will probably build that variant eventually.
Very interesting. Any new complications that you are studying or you are planning for the future in terms of, we were talking about the layout of the power reserve, the big date. I'm sure you must have some cool ideas for the future. Anything you can share?
We are playing around, but I have been told to keep my mouth shut about that. Because every time I say something, it doesn't happen until a few years later, and I get beat up. And our main priority at the moment is really building watches. When we make developments, it's not like at Lind where you see this guy with a white hat filling a praline. We actually do that. That's how we build watches. It's not show. There's no conveyor belt and construction line and machinery behind. This is how we build watches. So if we want to make developments, if we work on movement ideas, you might find half a day and you sit down and somebody starts working on it, and then it gets put aside, and we answer phones and tend to customers and build watches. So yeah, we do have some ideas. We're testing some things, but it doesn't make sense to announce anything that might not come for another 3 years.
Brilliant. We keep an eye on you. And once again, for the audience that is connecting now, we are live with Zeitwinkel, an independent watch manufacturer in Switzerland. Obviously, technically, we're live from Germany today and the UK, as far as I'm concerned. If you have any questions, or if you're seeing this as a recorded version, send any question across. I will put forward to Albert and to Zeitwinkel, and it will be a pleasure to do so. Before we go more on the personal sphere, Albert, don't worry, we're gonna be only talking about personal watchmaking likings. And what is one watch from Zeitwinkel that you absolutely adore, and what is one watch from Zeitwinkel that makes you really proud?
Well, obviously, I have our legal department, which consists of 5 or 6 lawyers, told me I have to say we love all our children. Having said that,
that's the classic answer. I don't.
It's probably this one. It's the Saphir Fumé. And we have brought out a blue version of it, although I personally still prefer the smoked sapphire version.
Yeah.
But we are also working on some other versions there that might also come out as limited series or not. We will talk about that as things progress. And one day I will probably... Sorry, yeah?
No, I was going to say that would class as your favorite timepiece from Zeitwinkel at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. I was going to try to show it here. Maybe it's a bit clearer as well. You find lots of pictures on the limited edition, of course, the channel you're watching now, or Zeitwinkel as well. This was the latest version with we can see it here even better, with the blue dial. And available only in 42.5 on in a grey as well. Would the 273 Sapphire Fumé also be the watch that makes you the proudest as well, or you have another watch that was perhaps a very, very big challenge and you managed to put it together?
Well, the 273, the large date mechanism, is certainly there was a very difficult birth, as you would say in German. So that obviously makes us happy that the watch works perfectly now and that it's so well received. But it does sound a little strange. We do more and more bespoke watches, and we're also putting a lot of steps in place so we can build more bespoke watches. And very often a customer comes up with something where I say, yeah, I would like that watch too. This is really cool. I should have thought of that. And then it never gets shown anywhere.
So you're a listening kind of, what I know you don't like the word brand, but as a team, as Zeitwinkel, you are listeners. You enjoy and you thrive on the exchange with collectors.
Yes. Yes, and I think those are the real stars, because they invest in a product, in a way of building watches. They basically buy a watchmaker's time, and they put their money on a brand that might not get them a lot of recognition. Very easy for an athlete or an artist or an actor to take money for presenting her or himself with a watch, but the real star is the customer, and we try to listen to what they would like to see. So very often a watch gets built because somebody said, I would love to see that.
And it's I'm having a quick play with a famous collectors platform that we're not going to mention here on the secondary market. And you barely find any Zeitwinkel there in the secondary market. And the first intuitive reason that comes to mind is it because you find a very high degree of loyalty. I mean, once you interact with a collector, once you create something bespoke or unique, or even from your core range, collectors tend to get really attached to the timepiece. No, there's not much flying around.
No, you don't find a lot. Obviously, occasionally there is one, but that is a reflection, I think, of the way we build watches. We want watches to last. You can take our watches apart, even if we're all gone in 100 years, and you will find a way to repair it. You will find a way to make the mechanism work again. There's nothing in there that is too complicated to rebuild if you're a good watchmaker. So that is exactly the way we build watches. We build them apart from anything that is fashionable. Of course, you can change straps and you might have a bespoke dial color, but it's never so you would say, oh, this was too small, too big, too flashy. Nobody does moon phases anymore or whatever. It's just boring. Very German, very Swiss.
You started in 2006 and across, obviously 2 years later, it was the end of the world financially. And ever since things have changed really, really dramatically to a point where independent watchmaking at the time was not even a thing. Now we talk about independent watchmaking like if we're talking about grunge music in the 90s. It is a thing. Are you surprised by the extent it's gone to, the fact that there are so many watchmakers you can't even mention because anyway you'll never be going to be able to to obtain. There are long waiting lists. There is this incredible scarcity issues on the supply chain. How surprised are you? How good it is, in your opinion, and how bad or dangerous it could be?
Well, I'm not really surprised. We had hoped for this development because it's just an evolution. When you have your 5th or 10th watch from one of the large brands, obviously you do look left or right, or you learn more about watchmaking, and then you do discover other brands. And I think it's good for the industry that you have many talents, many names coming in. I'm not a big fan of people who try to replicate that. They buy a watch somewhere outside of Europe, and then they put a name on it and basically take business away from the small, independent, single watchmakers. Not us, but single people who also fight for their name and try to build a living from that. But I think it's good that many independent watchmakers come in because they build bespoke watches, cater to every taste. The situation where everybody focuses on a few independents is to an extent understandable, because everybody has a limited set of focus, of capacity. And if you know 3 or 5 independent watchmakers, and then you see that, oh, they have become so rare, prices on the secondary market are exploding, you rather jump on that bandwagon than on looking for other brands that might be the next big one. And we have always tried to stay away from that. We have waiting lists. So if you order a watch now, it might be 4 months until you have it, which is due to our capacity. But we would never want to be a hyped watch. We would never want to be the next big brand you have to buy because it will become so valuable.
What is the advantage for you in being independent? Looking at it from an external perspective.
Well, first of all, for us, we are all not really compatible with corporate living. It's just not our thing. I've done a bit of that, and I don't like meetings. It's just a complete waste of lifetime, and it's also you do so much stuff because it needs to be done in that way. It doesn't make sense. So I think for us, the advantage of being independent is we can do exactly what we want. We can do it the way we want. The disadvantage is obviously mostly on the sales side, on the distribution side. It's the same in beverages, whiskey, beer, and anything that is made locally is very difficult to transport beyond that horizon. But that's where the 16 years went.
Absolutely, absolutely. And imagine, it's nearly 10 years for us. It's been 8 years, and again, it's been so exciting to see developments of watchmakers such as you guys. And I'm sure that the more exposure there will be, and the more of a cultivated audience will end up coming your way, because what you're doing is truly deep. It goes very deeply rather than superficially, and it's easy to spot.
Yes, and I think it's you mentioned the fact that there are many watchmakers. There's a very, very nice community, obviously on the limited edition, but also among the watchmakers. You want to be the first one to have this or that feature, so you will not tell all your friends we're going to build a pink watch or whatever. But there's a lot of helping each other. There's a lot of standing together and a lot of exchange. For example, we talk to Dave from Garrick Watches probably once a week, and we cry on the phone that we can't get watchmakers, and we all have the same problems. And wherever possible, we help each other. So that is a brand you should definitely check out. Among many others, Garrick Watches from the UK. And I think there is also a respect among the watchmakers for what the other one does. Might not be your exact taste, but it's very good.
it feels like we have prepared this, because not only I have the pleasure and the pain of speaking to David every week as well, obviously as being official retailers for Garrick. Garrick is developing incredibly, and what they're doing in the UK is nothing short of miraculous in a way, and they deserve the success they're having. But also in what you're saying, Albert, there is this feeling of a community that is really there. On one side, the audience is really a community. The get-togethers are really this sense of belonging really transpires. But it's also on the other side, on the side of the makers, and I have witnessed this so many times. And my last question, that's why I'm saying it feels like we have prepared it, but my last question was, are you planning on having any collaboration in the future? I know that you have collaborated with collectors groups such as Chronotempus. Let's say hi to Chronotempus. They're great. I think the taste that they have every time that they release a new edition is unique, and I really respect them. Any collaboration with any other watchmaker in the future, or are you generally open, or generally maybe not your thing?
No, it is our thing, and we're doing collaborations. Some of them never surface. We have customers who don't have the urge to take a photo of a Zeitwinkel and another watchmaker watch and post it. But we also have a few things in the pipeline that we cannot talk about, which will come out next year and the year after. Together with other independent watchmakers, where
that's exciting.
Usually we usually provide the tractor part. We make the movement, adapt the movement sometimes, and the other partner then builds the visual part, and a lot of artisanal workmanship goes into that as well. So yeah, we're doing it. We're also open, but it's not a principle where we say we sell our movements to anybody. It would have to be a collaboration.
That's very cool. That's very cool to know, and we keep our eyes open. And of course, at the limited edition, we try to give the information as in advance as possible. So I'm sure Albert will share with us when the time is mature.
Yes.
There's an interesting question, James, from James Christian. Thanks, James, for watching this. Really appreciate it. The presence of women in watchmaking, Albert, insiders like yourself and myself, we know that some of the best watchmakers in the workshops are women, and they have been for a long time. Yeah. I remember visiting Girard-Perregaux back in 2007 when I was working there, and then Géchard-Lecoultre as well. I had the chance to visit, and the number of women was outstanding. There are not a lot of women watchmakers besides the usual names that we know: Fiona Kruger, Eva Loeb. I love Rebecca Struders. I think she's absolutely exceptional. What is your sentiment and your answer to this question by James?
Well, of course, there are a lot of women watchmakers, and they're specialists, and they're, I don't know if it's because they're women, but some women or female watchmakers are really the best at their segment of what they do. I couldn't tell you why. What I know is that the more diversity, the more different skills, the more different backgrounds you have in a workshop, in a company really, the better the culture develops, and at the end of the day, the better the product gets. Now, what I would like to see is more female watchmakers that develop their own brands, like Eva or Rebecca or Fiona. I don't think we have enough of that. And there's a lot of input. I don't believe in watches for females and watches for males. Never have. We never marketed our watches that way. It's sizes, and I'm a proud owner of a very skinny wrist. So very often I wear 39mm watches. Yeah. And I would wear them in any color, probably not with any gemstones. Yeah. I don't believe in that concept, but I think there should be more influence outside the usual committee designs you see from the corporate brands, or the single male designer watch designs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Very interesting. Thank you, James, for the for the question. And yeah, where we're going from there, it's been 47 minutes already, Albert. It's been flying. And
finally, Jay is here, I see.
Jay is there as well. Jay, good to see you as well. as always, thanks for sticking to us. I'm pretty amazed. Yeah, we have really a core community of people that love and enjoy our lives. And thank you, Albert, for being with us. There will be several hundred views of this recorded session later on. We will pass on any question that it may come. Yeah. Albert, thank you for your time. We should do this more often, and perhaps on your new launch, beginning of next year, we can bring some more meat to the fire.
Yeah, sorry for being a little mum about it, but it doesn't make sense to promise anything that doesn't come.
You know it better, so no problem at all. And I shall see you very, very soon. Thank you very much, Albert.
Yeah,
and
looking forward to that, and thank you for having me.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.